Hi, everyone. We'll give it another 30 seconds or so for people to join. Then we'll hop in. Okay, let's go ahead and start. We usually have a few people come here and join within the first couple of minutes. Before we start the actual presentation, let me just review for a bit for people who are new to the webinar. My name is Ben Driggs. I'm the president of Navigate Financial. And we have been doing this webinar series for over a year now. And we talk about different topics. This year in 2025, we are coordinating our monthly webinar topics around approximately 12 different topics that we talk about with clients on a regular basis, because a lot of people think of a financial advisory firm as an investment shop. And of course, investments is a big part of our business. But we also are involved with lots of different aspects of finances. We are financial advisors. And with that, we talk about budgeting and debt and managing cash that you might have at the bank. We talk about insurance and professional development and entrepreneurship. We talk about taxes. I think that was last month or the month before. We talk about issues impacting children and parents. So we really want to be a service for our clients, from retirement planning or distribution planning during retirement, to children planning, education planning, buying a car, all these different topics. We want to be a resource for the public, and we very much enjoy doing so. So that gives a sense. So this month we are talking about one of our 11 main topics, that is retirement and planning. So if you have any questions, just put those into the chat. My colleague DJ is going to be monitoring the chat room. And then after this is done, you can catch the video. We'll upload it to our website, navigatefinancial.com, and you can watch that at a later time. So let's jump in here and talk about retirement and aging. So today, by the way, I think we might have a fewer. My daughter, for example, she likes to listen to these webinars. And last night she said, "Oh, I'm pretty tied up." And I said, if there's one to miss for a 25-year-old, it might be this one, because we are going to be talking about issues for retirees, people entering in retirement. So Eliza, it might be good for someone like my daughter Eliza, for thinking of us or thinking of her grandparents or something, but maybe not directly impacting her. We're going to be talking about 5 different topics. You can read each of those. We're going to first talk about that transition to retirement, then managing income, estate planning, as we get older, actually, issues that elderly people face. And then one final note that really is just going to say, we've covered a lot of ground. You really, if there's ever a time to talk with a financial advisor, it is now. It is about these issues. There are a lot of moving parts. It is, in my opinion, the most complicated And I'd say any of the issues are not necessarily complicated in and of themselves, but they all seem to hit during retirement. When you're younger, you're just thinking, save money, invest it, think long term, try to avoid debt, manage that debt appropriately. But that is not the case as you get older. You really have a lot of things that have accumulated over time, and there's some transition. So we're going to talk first about the transition from working for your working years to retirement. And today's webinar is going to be really, I'm doing a little differently than we usually do. It's really going to be a set of questions that invite a conversation and invite some thought on your part to think, I haven't really thought about that before. Maybe I should either give some thought or give us a call, of course, and we can have that conversation with you. That's what we do every day. This is our job. And the things we're going to be talking about today are perhaps the things we talk about the most. So financial considerations, one that I just jotted down. Do we know how much income we have during retirement? Now, to accomplish this, we can do a simple retirement income analysis for you, whether you're 40, 50, 60, 65, you're getting ready to retirement. What does that look like? Understanding income is a very good starting point. Emotionally, I've added this because the transition to retirement, it evokes a lot of emotions that are unfamiliar to us. For instance, our income is going to stop when we retire. So having no income when hopefully we've had income throughout our lives and that income stops is very unnerving, and understandably so. So we've got to mentally adjust for a loss of income, or a transition at least from traditional wages to now I'm going to start taking money out, which raises another common thing that makes people uncomfortable, is they've had this savings that has been growing, and now that savings is going to be coming down. So the combination of, I've lost money, or I've lost income. Most people's income does go down during retirement. That is coupled with, I'm now starting to take away. And so there's this sense of, oh my goodness, I'm going to be running out of money. And that's a very scary thing for a lot of people. So we talk through that. We want to model that. And I would say the majority of people have a difficult time making that adjustment. And so we want to start having those conversations before retirement rather than just suddenly at retirement itself. We want to make adjustments to day-to-day living, of course. The timing when is right to retire. I was talking with a gentleman yesterday, and we were going through these retirement income projections, and we were looking at, he likes his job and everything, but is he in a position to retire at 60 or 62 rather than waiting until the traditional 65, 66? Could he even retire at age 55? He's younger, he's saving a lot of money, he's being really responsible and frugal with his money now. And so is that a possibility? And what does that look like going from, say, 55 to 65 without any Social Security income? He's going to have to be paying for his own medical bills or his health insurance premiums during that 10-year time period. So I would say in general, the most difficult time from a financial standpoint, the tricky time is during your 60s, or from the late 50s, if you retire in your late 50s, for example, because Social Security hasn't kicked in and Medicare hasn't kicked in. Once those two kick in, then things start becoming a little more predictable. So for people who want to retire earlier, that's a conversation we want to start having. Another thing before I forget is Social Security. Someone just, we talked to someone a couple of days ago, and they said, thinking about retiring, when should I start doing Social Security? Well, for most people, if you can afford to do so, it's advisable to wait till age 70 if you have a life expectancy of about 80, 81, 82. You know, if you think you're going to live certainly into your 90s, the rule of thumb is wait until age 70 because you're going to get a stepped up annual income from Social Security by postponing that. But a lot of people can't afford to do that, right? So if you can't afford to wait until 70 to take Social Security, how are you going to maximize your Social Security? Anyway, objectives. What do you want to experience during retirement? How do you want your life to look like? What do you want to achieve? Values. Really, if we take a step back, and I need to remind myself to do this often. I had a conversation just yesterday with somebody, and she had some extra money to invest. And the question is, she said, you know, Ben, how should I invest this money? Or what should I do with this money? Should I invest it at all? You know, it's really nice to have some extra money, but that does come with a lot of options, right? And so I said, well, before we have a question about how you should invest it, let's talk about really what are you trying to achieve? And those could be very many things. You could say, I don't want to work. I want to retire as quickly as possible. Or you might be happy at work and you say, well, I want more money during retirement, or I want to give more money away to my beneficiaries when I get older or when I pass away. Or a very common one is, I just want to feel safe. I just want to know that there's enough money there. And so I'm going to play it nice and safe and easy. I'm willing to sacrifice trying to grow the money to a bigger amount for beneficiaries down the road, because they're going to be okay. They're going to get some inheritance down the road. For me, the top priority is just a very dramatic retirement. Then you have health. We want to make sure that we're taking care of our health. And then healthcare, understanding Medicare, Medigap insurance. If you're retiring by 65, how are you going to cover those premiums I talked about a second ago? So there is, everyone should know here on the call, there is an industry, kind of a subspecialty industry of people who specialize in helping people get Medicare insurance. They don't charge anything. Medicare understands that when people can work with a professional, it is worth their expense to give that person, a few $100s a year to help that person, because then that takes the pressure off the Medicare, government people. So I know some people who work in that industry. You can call me for a reference if you want, but that's a really good service. I would encourage everybody to reach out to a Medicare professional to help you for Medicare. So let's go to the next slide, but let me check back to see if we have any questions. Hold on a second. Any questions? I don't see any questions, so we will continue. It's 10:14, and we will end at the bottom of the hour. We appreciate, or it's important to us so that people know that we're not going to drag on, and we try to be as punctual as possible. Okay, managing income during retirement. So now we've moved from the transition. Now we're in retirement. Do you understand how much income you're going to have from different income sources? That's, again, part of that planning phase. Do you have a sense of your investment objectives? How do the way your investments are being match your objectives? So again, this talks about, if a priority during retirement is to spend a lot of money and having a very enjoyable, carefree lifestyle during retirement, that of course is going to be taken away from the amount of money you're going to be giving to your beneficiaries down the road. So that's a trade-off that people need to start considering. And the other one is the flip side. am I frugal to give a lot to my beneficiaries? Another thing that we factor in when we do retirement plan analyses is how is our spending different in our 60s compared to the 70s, compared to the 80s? Now, we generally assume that our income needs will go down as we get older. Because people, when you're 65 and you just retire, you're probably going to want to make up for lost time. You're going to want to travel typically and have some fun during those early retirement years. That's going to be more expensive. But when you're 85, most 85-year-olds just sitting around chilling out. Maybe they travel here and there a lot. They give some gifts, but their income needs are a little less than a 65-year-old typically, almost always, I would say. There's one wild card though, of course, and that is long-term care. Who's going to be taken care of? They have to go into an assisted living situation in their mid-80s. How does that look? So that's the big wild card for the retirement income planning. At any rate, so we want to make sure that the investments match that. So if our main thing is, I want to grow my money to be as big as possible, then we're going to have a more aggressive investment portfolio. If, on the other hand, we want a nice, safe, steady, mellow retirement, we're going to want to pull that down, recognizing we may not have as much at the end of the day. When we run retirement analyses for clients, we look at the probability of success and as defined as the likelihood of never running out of money during one's lifetime, right? So what we find interesting is that when we have the investments more conservative, we take a nice and steady approach. On one hand, our probability for success is high because we can trust that our investments are going to grow at a very reliable rate of return, even if it is a modest rate of return. On the other hand, if we have a more aggressive rate of return, what happens is, yes, on one hand, if we can achieve those higher rates of return, we will have more money when we die, because of course the money has grown at a higher rate during our lifetime. But then that is offset by the greater or the less reliability of those returns over the years. So like the bandwidth doubles, and now, yeah, we might die with a lot of money, or we might run out of money sooner than if we would have taken a nice steady approach. So that's something we talk about during the retirement income planning phase, before retirement, and also during retirement. We meet with retirees all the time, regularly reviewing that, adjusting their portfolio to make sure it matches their objectives. There's a withdrawal order of operations that everyone should know. We won't get into it much. It's very simple, other than to say this. In general, the order of operations is as follows. Number one, this is when we retire. Number one, we drain taxable accounts first. So that'd be money at the bank and an investment account, stuff like that. That goes first. Secondly, is we have tax deferred pre-tax accounts like a traditional IRA, 401k. Those go second. And the last is your Roth tax deferred tax-free income, typically comes out last. Now there are changes to that. That's not always the case, but in general, that's the order of operations. So we want to get an understanding of how that looks for our particular situation. And taxes, we want to make sure that we're being tax smart. We can go pretty far with that discussion. And of course, we work with tax professionals all the time who specialize in making sure that that's being managed correctly. We'll go to the next slide, and then let me check to see if we have any questions. Any questions? No. So don't be shy if you have any questions, but we are clipping along pretty quickly. I know we're covering a lot, and that's why at the end of the day, there will be I think this webinar will raise more questions than answer questions, perhaps, and that's okay. So estate planning, we certainly encourage everyone to establish a relationship with an estate planning attorney. That's item number 3 here. That call us. We don't charge any money to have that conversation, and most estate planning attorneys wouldn't have a consultation fee anyway for that initial conversation. But maybe we could be unbiased and give our opinions about when it might be helpful to engage the services, or maybe when you could do it yourself. That really is, I mean, our default is hire the professional, pay that extra money, and do it the right way. But a lot of people want to do it themselves, and typically you get what you pay for, right? So if you do it yourself, you do run the risk that you may, it may seem good, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So there might be some things that on the surface, you think everything's buttoned up, but you might be missing some things. So that's why we encourage that conversation. But your estate planning documents, we want to make sure that everyone has their basic ones. That's your will, your basic will, your powers of attorney, your durable powers of attorney. That's going to be for particularly health directives, and particularly for financial instructions. Who's going to be calling the shots if you have a stroke, or you're incapacitated in some way? We want to make sure that those directions are clear, and that paperwork is with the correct institutions that are going to be called into play in those circumstances. We have our healthcare directives, and then we have often a trust, and the trust is there when you really need to turn to an estate planning attorney to help you through those discussions. And the middle one here is we want to make sure that all of our beneficiaries, doesn't cost you anything, just takes a few minutes. Spend it some time, even today or over the next couple of days. Make sure you go into your 401k account, make sure your beneficiaries are correct, your IRA accounts, your life insurance accounts. Those things are not held in trust. So what often happens during retirement planning is, if you have a trust, which is generally advisable, so you would have a trust, and there's certain things put into the trust, bank accounts, investments accounts, your home, or something like that. But there are certain things that don't go in the trust, and those are typically retirement accounts that already have a determined beneficiary, such as a 401k. So these are things we can talk about on the estate planning side of things. We'll go here. I think we have 1 or 2 more slides. Any questions? No more questions. We have about 7 more minutes. So we are tracking so nicely. Thank you very much, by the way. I enjoy doing this. We appreciate these conversations. We invite you to share our services with your friends and with your family members, particularly a conversation like this today. Maybe you don't need this, but you have a loved one who does need this support. We are a good resource for them, and certainly invite that conversation. So elderly care considerations, and I think this is the last one. Gosh, okay, there's so many considerations as people get elderly, and those those late 80s, or they're getting ready to pass. We have wealth transfer considerations. We have health management decisions. So starting up here in the left-hand corner, we talk about long-term care. How is that going to play out? Who's going to be taking care of mom and dad? Are we looking at assisted living? Are they staying in their home? If they're staying in home, what kind of support do we have, and how much is that going to cost? Are we prepared to do that financially? Another question that we have quite commonly is the financing of that. Is it better to, let's say we don't have a lot of money, if no money at all, but we own a house. Do we sell the house and use the proceeds to fund that? Or do we borrow against the house? Do we maybe compromise and put mom and dad in a less desirable thing? This sounds actually kind of bad because when I say it this way, I think everyone knows what the answer would be. But do we, they might have a house that they own outright and it's worth $700,000. They have no savings. And so they think, gosh, I can't afford a high quality assisted living situation. But then it's like, yeah, but you have the $700,000 asset. How can we convert that asset to an income stream to be able to pay off that? I had a conversation just a week ago with mom who's 83. You have the daughter. We meet with the mom and the daughter, and we're talking through this, because the mom right now is paying, gosh, it's like $6,000 a month in an assisted living arrangement. Very high quality, great service. Everybody's happy and everything. But maybe it would be better to buy a little condo and take the money that she saved up, save the $6,000. Anyway, these kinds of conversations. Number two, do your loved ones understand your preferences? We definitely want to have good communications going on with respect to all aspects, but certainly about where we want to be living in our later years of our life. You own a home, downsize. We kind of talked about that a minute ago. Number four, are your loved ones aware of your estate planning plans and preferences? We want that written down. We want that communicated orally. We want everybody on board. There's a lot of data to support the argument that children are happier, everything goes more smoothly when there's more communication going on. Now, a lot of people they're private and they don't want to be talking about these things with their children. But if you're neutral at all and you trust the data, you should have that conversation because the data is pretty clear. Communicate as much communication or more communication is better than less communication. We have burial arrangements here in the lower left hand of the screen. Our funeral arrangements, how's that going to play out? Want to make sure that those are being done, and we can have a conversation with that. One of our clients is a funeral home, right? So we talk about them. We talk about these topics not infrequently with them. Have you prepared a letter of intent, legacy? It's not even a formal legal document, but just talking about some of your wishes. I know I have that. I update it about once a year. Just things, hey, these are things that are on my mind. I want my children to know when I pass away, these things were important to me. And lastly, if you have things that you want to do before you die, certain things you want to accomplish, things you want to give away, anything special that's near and dear to your heart or to your values, are those getting done? And if not, why? How can we help you? What is getting in the way for you to be able to die having lived the kind of rich and full, healthy, loving life that you would want to have lived? And so the last final note, you can read this along with me. It's relatively complicated. It's the most common time that people work with a financial advisor is the transition to retirement because of these many moving parts. And we encourage you to reach out to us to have that conversation. And if not us, with someone else, so that you can feel that you have someone that you can trust and other people, the estate planning attorney, the tax person, all working to help you. And then we have a thank you here. There's our information, Navigate Financial, our phone number, our website, of course, and then a nod to compliance. We have our disclosures. So it is now 10:30 on the button. Let me see. Oh, there's one question. Hold on here. I've been paying occasionally use Legal Shield. They'd be a good source for an estate planning attorney, or should I find a different source? Great question. So in the last week, I have had conversations about estate planning with many people, but I will point to 3 different cases. And in all 3 cases, I gave them Legal Shield as an option, because Legal Shield can go pretty far with a low cost. I like Legal Shield. It's a great option. But they have some things that are default that are very inexpensive. But then if you say, yeah, but I want to do this and this, then they start charging for that. And that may be more expensive or less expensive than you anticipated. So I think at a minimum, for the person who's asking this question, ask them, like, how much is it going to do? So typically, estate planning is very simple to do: the will, powers of attorney, healthcare directives. That can be done in your sleep. A lot of people can do that themselves. It's in the state of Utah, it is a tax form that everyone, or it's a health form that the Department of Health puts out. Everyone uses it. So that's not particularly complicated. It's the trust, setting up a trust, doing that right. That's definitely when you need the attorney. And places like Legal Shield will typically cost extra for that. And then in addition to that, I gave them 2 names of attorneys that I've worked with, estate planning attorneys representing kind of like the small independent shop or a bigger firm, and each of those have a different model, a different price point. So thank you very much for that question. Okay, we are wrapping up. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Until next month, that's the 2nd Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. Until then, be safe, enjoy a wonderful May and summer ahead. Take care.